President Putin says he has no interest in capturing Kharkiv, and yet at the same time, Russian troops, the 3,000 of them that crossed the border, have advanced 10 kilometers from the border with Ukraine towards the city of Kharkiv, and the Ukrainian troops have apparently stabilized the Kremlin's assault. And President Zelenskyy says there's 3 lines of defense protecting Kharkiv, and Russia's forces have only reached the first of these 3 defensive lines. And he says that this has stabilized the Russians where they are located. The deepest point of their advance is 10 kilometers. The city of Kharkiv is 35 kilometers away from the border, and although the Ukrainian forces are vigorous in their defense, this is an impulsive decision by the Kremlin to pour over the border from to maybe to protect, to drive some sort of wedge between Ukraine and any possibility of attacking Belgorod. But the Russian troops are advancing daily, despite the plans not to take Kharkiv. My own hunch is that Kharkiv will fall, and that the attack on Kharkiv is a way to demoralize and destabilize and distract the Ukrainian defenders from something else. At the same time, 51 drones over Crimea, 41 over Krasnodar, drones over the Belgorod region, Kursk, over the Black Sea, ridiculing the Russian Black Sea fleet. And the pause in Western supplied arms and the restrictions that are being imposed by the West, you can't use this to attack Russian territory, all of this puts a constraint on what Ukraine can do in response. And Vyacheslav Gladkov, Belgorod's governor, said that 2 people were killed when a petrol station in the region was damaged by drones. Well, we can't independently verify that, can we, as the BBC would say. And in contrast, you've got the targeting of power stations all over Ukraine on a routine basis by Russian missiles. So where are we going with this? I said the other day, I think we're approaching an end game where Ukraine knows it's not going to get a continuous supply of weapons to defend itself, but neither is it going to get the weaponry needed to make some sort of offensive attack and push the Russian invaders out of their country. In the end, because there simply isn't enough support for Zelenskyy, there will come a point where there has to be some sort of capitulation, unless, that is, the Russian forces rebel against the recognition that they are simply in a meat grinder, and President Putin has no interest in them personally or in their leaders. President Putin, I use the term loosely, because as we know, he's in a fridge pushing up a bag of Smedley's frozen peas. President Putin is only interested in keeping this problem going, because while it's going, he's in power, much like Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel. While the bombs are going, he can put out new initiatives to attack Lebanon, to attack the north of Gaza. All of this keeps the active war zone going and keeps him in power, just as the various new front lines in Ukraine keep Putin's Kremlin faction in power, until people realize this isn't about winning a war. This isn't about a moral duty, a moral right. This is about the power of the Kremlin, the power of the Israeli command in the Knesset, the power of Netanyahu. This is all about power. It's not about what is right. And there's a wonderful scene in the musical Camelot, which became a film, which has some virtue, beautifully designed, appallingly sung. And there's a point where Richard Harris, or originally, of course, Richard Burton, says that Merlin had told him when he's flying as a hawk or as a bird, look down and what do you see? Do you see any boundaries? Do you see borders? No. The borders are something imposed on the landscape by the little minds of the human beings. I'm not suggesting we should be opting for open borders, but I am suggesting that we should be a little bit more faithful to the idea of diplomacy, to the idea of reciprocity, to the idea of neighbourly trade. And in the end, that is more important than the bang-bang of war, which cannot in the end produce stability. In the end, we need a stable society. Only with a stable society can we have progress.